Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Madam Roina and my fellow classmates. I am Nurul Naziha and I'm going to make an introduction to Singapore. So basically, Singapore is an island that gained independence in 1965. It is located on the Malay Peninsula's southernmost point. Singapore's strong governance has made the most significant contribution to its prosperity. It has overcome all of its new problems because the leaders have been diligent and cooperative. It has also a highly developed market economy based on commerce. Singapore's economy is known to be the world's seventh least corrupt, most pro-investment, and the third biggest gross domestic product per capita. The economy of Singapore is largely dependent on exports, especially those such as electronics, petroleum products, chemical, medical, and optical equipment, and medicines. Singapore GDP per capita was $516, which is 2,162 ringgit Malaysia, and half of the population was uneducated. To resolve this concern, the Singaporean government formed the Economic Development Board to encourage both domestic and international investment in the economy. So in 1992, Singapore economic growth has expanded 33 times. Living standard gradually improved as more individuals move from low-income to middle-income categories. In the long run, this led to the higher savings rate and more stable economic development. So that's all, the introduction of Singapore. I'm going to pass the next section to Nur Alia. Thank you.
Thank you, Naziha. Hello everyone, my name is Nur Alia Izzati binti Saleh and I will be presenting about the public policy in Singapore. There are two types of public policy. The first one is fiscal policy and the second one is monetary policy. Fiscal policy means that the government's adjustment of government spending and taxes to influence the economy in that country. Meanwhile, monetary policy means that the central bank's strategy of controlling the number of dollars as an instrument for attaining the ultimate goal of economy policy. Fiscal policy is classified into two categories: expansionary fiscal policy and contractionary fiscal policy. During recession, the government undertakes expansionary fiscal policy. The goal of this strategy is to boost economic growth and reduce the unemployment rate. To maximize the government spending, the government should raise its possible income by lowering the direct taxes. Contractionary fiscal policy happens when the government spends less than it collects in tax income. The goal of this strategy is to reduce the rate of inflation. The government may do this by reducing spending on goods and services. They can reduce discretionary income through increasing direct taxes and transfer payment. The tax in Singapore is progressive because those who get higher income will pay higher tax. Singapore's budget is in deficit because the government expenditure already exceeds its revenue. Singapore is highly dependent on external demand. When there was a decline in export in Singapore, then there was a recession there. To remedy the situation, the Singapore government is using an expansionary fiscal policy as part of a policy mix to boost the economic growth. The Singapore government's consumption, investment and expenditure on local products and services are small compared to domestic export. As a result, there was an increase in consumption, investment and government spending on goods and services to offset the decline in domestic export. Singapore's monetary policy has been centered on the exchange rate instrument since 1981. As a result, Singapore has been able to maintain a high level of price stability in its tiny but open Singapore economy. The economy in Singapore is tiny and has the benefit of being accessible to capital as well as trade flows. Singapore's shortage of resources has resulted in an open trade policy that enables for investment and international commerce. The Singapore Monetary Authority enabled the Singapore dollar to float on the market. The level and direction of the exchange rate that is generally permitted to increase and fall within a policy band is usually stated at least semi-annually. That's all from me. I'll pass to the next presenter, Nur Syuhada. Thank you.
Thank you, Alia. Assalamualaikum and hi, I am Shuhada and I will be presenting about problems and methods to overcome inflation and unemployment in Singapore. Before we start, inflation is defined as a persistent and sustained increase in the general price level. It also implies that there is an increase in the cost of living that causes lower purchasing power. Not only that, there is an inverse relationship between inflation and the value of money.
As you can see on the slide, it is a picture of inflation rates in Singapore from 1986 to 2006. In comparison to the previous year, Singapore's average inflation rate was at 0.57% in 2019, and it appeared to be on the mend after falling to negative territory in 2015 and 2016. Therefore, Singapore's inflation is predicted to stable at roughly 1.48% in 2026. As we all know, there are three primary causes of inflation, which are demand pull inflation, cost pull inflation, and monetary inflation. For your information, Singapore has experienced relatively high economic growth and low inflation since its independence in 1965.
However, Singapore also faces some inflation problem in the country. As you can see, the cost push inflation had occurred when consumer prices were influenced by fluctuation in global food and oil prices, which were caused by supply disruption caused by extreme weather conditions and increased geopolitical risk in oil-producing regions respectively. Then, the cost of private road transportation also has fluctuated significantly over the years, owing in part to government policies governing motor vehicle population growth and car financing.
Therefore, there are several methods or ways to overcome the inflation problems in Singapore by using a contractionary monetary policy, which is a popular method of controlling inflation. As a proof, a contractionary policy seeks to reduce an economy's money supply by lowering bond prices and raising interest rates. This helps to reduce spending because when there is less money to go around, those who have it prefer to keep and save it rather than spend it. Spending cuts also are important during an inflationary period because they help to slow economic growth and as a result the rate of inflation. Next, the other method is to raise the amount of money that banks are legally required to keep on hand to cover withdrawals. The more money banks are required to keep in reserve, the less money they have to lend to consumers. Consumers will borrow less if they have less money to lend, resulting in lower spending. The other method is to reduce the money supply either directly or indirectly by enforcing policies that encourage it. The two examples of this is calling in government debts and increasing the interest paid on bonds. Other than that, the Monetary Authority of Singapore also controls inflation by manipulating the exchange rate. A stronger Singapore dollar reduces the cost of imported goods and vice versa. Next, what is unemployment? Unemployment occurs when people who are in the working age group are able and willing to work but are unable to find a suitable job. Now, let's have a look on the unemployment rate in Singapore from 1999 to 2020. Actually, in 2020, Singapore's unemployment rate will be around 4.38%, up from 4.11% the previous year. In many economies, this will be considered overemployment. However, Singapore's natural unemployment rate may be lower than other economies. But since the first quarter of 2016, Singapore has already seen rising unemployment. The increase in Singaporean unemployment can be attributed to cyclical, structural, and possibly frictional unemployment. Therefore, cyclical unemployment is actually one of the problems of unemployment in Singapore. In Singapore, cyclical unemployment has risen as total demand for domestic goods and services grows slowly relative to labor supply in the economy. When the total demand for domestic goods and services grows slowly relative to the supply of labor in the economy, the new jobs created will not be enough to accommodate the new entrants in the labor force. Singapore has a small economy that is heavily reliant on export. However, due to a variety of factors, Singapore's exports have increased at a slow pace in recent quarters.
The second problem is structural unemployment increases when the pace of technological advancement increases. The shift in Singapore's economy from a labor-driven to a productivity-driven one has accelerated technology innovation in recent years. This is due to the unsustainable nature of the labor-driven economic growth model, which will result in a growing population in a land-constrained Singapore.
Hence, there are various methods to overcome unemployment problems in Singapore. The first one is, according to the Ministry of Manpower MOM of Singapore, Singapore must ensure that high-quality jobs are created. The priority here is to create enough decent jobs for everyone. Singapore should not be concerned about technology destroying jobs, but rather using it as a partner in job development. The second one is education and training. The goal is to provide long-term jobless people with new skills that will help them find work in developing industry, such as Skill Futures Credit, which retrains unemployed people in fundamental IT skills that will help them find work in the service sector. The last one is employment subsidies can also help to reduce unemployment. For example, companies that hire long-term unemployed people may be eligible for tax incentive or subsidy. This provides them with fresh confidence as well as on-the-job training.
That's all from me, and I will pass to the next presenter, Naziha.
Thank you, Nurshada. I'm going to present the conclusion for this topic. As for the conclusion, despite geographical constraints and a huge natural resource base, Singapore was able to establish the foundation for economic growth and variety by making efficient use of its interport status. Next, now Singapore is a regional headquarters for over 3,000 international corporations, and it boasts world-class financial and service sectors as well as highly efficient physical infrastructure. Singapore routinely rates high among the most attractive countries for international business, with per capita GDP levels equivalent to those of industrialized Western nations. Singapore was named the most competitive Asian country in the World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Report 2006 until 2007, beating out Japan, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, while placing 5th overall. So today, Singapore economy is still in the excellent shape. However, the Singapore economy will confront substantial difficulties in the next few years, including disruption general by new technology, changing international competition framework, and increasing economic nationalism. Domestically, Singapore will have to deal with an aging population. Not only that, decreasing population growth, rising prices, a lack of innovation capability, and weak productivity development. So for the last one, even though Singapore lack of powerful private sector, they able to pursue an interventionist but successful power of economic management. Although the local private sector has lately been an active participant in economic growth, the state's role in Singapore remains critical. So that's all from our group. Thank you and have a very nice day.